Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 24 of Shanalytics. Tonight, we're going to be predicting some future awards for the 49ers, some season awards, some individual awards. Just to give you guys the preview really quick before we get into everything, we're going to do most improved player on the 49ers, comeback player of the year, newcomer of the year, sixth man of the year, which, it's an NBA award, but essentially we mean best player off the bench. Then we'll end with MVP because you can't not touch on MVP. Then we'll just end with who we think will lead the 49ers in sacks and receiving yards. Everybody, thank you so much for joining in tonight. If you're not aware, my guy to I don't know which side you are, to the other guy who's co-hosting with me tonight, Eric, Bay Area Ballers, is with me tonight. If you guys check in the description of my YouTube video, I got all of his stuff linked below. You should go check out all of it. He does some great stuff, including he did a live watch of the USA Olympic gold medal game, which is excellent. I highly recommend that for everybody. But Bay Area Baller, how have you been doing, man? I know this is an exciting time for the 49ers preseason. This is the most exciting preseason in 49ers history for sure. So how are you feeling, man? How you doing?
I'm doing excellent, and that's no joke because you said it's the most important preseason. I had to go and get some tickets to this preseason game coming up on Saturday. I said, I want to be there. I want to check it out. I want to see Trey Lance live, see how Jimmy G's performing, and really just get back into the swing of things. Just being at a football game, I can't wait.
It's just going to feel a little more normal, right? Obviously there's been tons of stuff going on since March of 2020, but it feels like we're starting to hit some checkpoints along the way where things, at least in our normal life, are starting to feel a little bit more normal every single day. Hopefully things will get better. I know we're all hoping for that, hoping for a great season. Just want to give a shout out to a few people in the comments. Harvey, what's up? How you doing? Ekim, Korean 49er, he's the man. We got Crypto Ryan in here, Raymond Martinez. Oh, we got everyone in here. And, this is an interesting day today. Twitter was a lot of fun this morning. I had quite the experience on there. Just go check out my Twitter if you haven't already.
I woke up and I was catching up with all that goodness. And I was all, is instigated the right word? No, maybe not instigated. That puts a negative connotation on it. But I was very interested in the discussion you started earlier today, Ben.
Yeah. Well, I like to ponder sometimes, and why not ask questions? So they're always worth the ask. Everyone, I appreciate you in the comments. Let us know if there's anything you want us to touch on at the end, but we'll be rolling through all the awards. And you know what? You guys let us know how you feel about the awards, who you think is going to win them, if we're wrong or not. But again, make sure you like and subscribe to my channel. Make sure you like and subscribe to Bay Area Ballers channel. Check out him on Twitter as well. He's got all of this stuff going on there. And you know what? Let's just get right into the swing of things. Eric, let's start with the most improved player. I think this is an interesting award. So the most improved player for the NBA is essentially, it's pretty self-explanatory. Every single year they see one player jump from one year to the next and how much they improve from last season to that next season. So for you, Bay Area Baller, who do you think is going to be the most improved player on the 49ers?
Most improved player, this is a player that I love, and I feel like Niners fans, we've kind of been cooling on this guy, and it's Raheem Mostert. Raheem Mostert, last year, he only played 4 or 5 games. He had an injury-plagued season, still rushed for 500 yards, still was at 5 yards a carry, and from what I see from him, he can be close to 5.5, 6 yards a carry. I think he's a special runner. Most importantly, I think he's going to stay on the field this year. I don't think we're going to give him quite as many carries as we tried to early on in the year. I don't want to give him 15, 18 carries a game. But if we can scale him back 10 to 12 carries, you throw him a couple balls, I'm expecting Raheem to go for over 1,000 rushing yards and really exceed a lot of expectations. Because like I said, I feel like Niners fans have been cooling on him, and he's dynamic. He's electric. If Trey Lance gets in there, that's going to be another player defenses have to watch. Now we're playing 11-on-11 football, and I see it. Here's something that I've always like to do in fantasy football is grab a running back who's paired with a mobile QB, because when you have a mobile QB like a Lamar Jackson, defenses have to respect that. And what it does, it opens up the running lanes for the running backs, because now defenses have to contain, and we have that element this year, Ben. So I'm fully expecting Raheem Mostert to bust out. I thought it was going to happen last year, where I was hyping up Raheem Mostert big time last year.
Oh, yeah.
And I was calling him Chris Johnson, CJ2K 2.0. Now, that might have been a little early because we saw what happened last year, but I wouldn't be surprised if he made me start having those thoughts again this year, because he's dynamic.
And I think his impact on this team is going to be huge this season. Specifically, I think the way you look at the 49ers running back room and kind of the depth they have along there, Raheem Mostert is that perfect number one sort of back, right? Who's not going to necessarily get 20 carries every game, but he's kind of your perfect change of pace number one back, because along with Trey Sermon, along with Elijah Mitchell, Wayne Gallman, to me, it's the most talented running back room Kyle Shanahan's had in his time with the 49ers. So with Raheem Mostert this season, they're not going to use him as much necessarily. They're not going to put the burden on him to be a bell cow type of guy, right? To have those sort of carries. But if we're talking about improvement, yeah, I mean, that's a great one to point out, because it was so hard for the 49ers last season, even when he was healthy, for them to run the ball. They were always coming from behind. They were always trying to get back into games rather than doing what they did in 2019 and then how they were so successful just running down teams' throats. So when you add that along with the element of Trey Lance, I'm there with you, Barry Baller. I think Trey Lance is only going to make the running backs and the running plays better in this offense in general, and this is a great thing for guys like Deebo Samuel, Raheem Mostert, because it takes a lot of the pressure off them. It means less injuries for those type of guys, less risk for those type of guys. So for Raheem Mostert, if he can stay healthy, and if Trey Lance can add to that, because he is so dynamic, because he puts so much pressure on the other team's defense, I'm right there with you. I think it's going to be a huge season for Raheem Mostert if he is healthy. That's really the question with him is can he keep that health? And he is getting older, but he also hasn't had a lot of football necessarily underneath him. So I'm interested to see how he bounces back this season for sure. I think that's a great one to point out. But
yeah, not a lot of carries early on in his career. He was primarily a special teamer. We know he's a track guy. So although he's an older running back, it feels like he's got some fresh legs. And where I see later on in the season in the playoffs, that's where you turn guys loose. Like, you can scale him back early, but later on, when you got to win games, I mean, I want Raheem Mostert on the field.
Oh, absolutely. And I think, it depends on how well Trey Sermon does, but I see them as a 1-2 kind of monster once they do get into the playoffs. That's how I see them divvying up the snaps and running those guys specifically. So I think that's a great one to point out, Bay. The guy I went with is Mike Mcglinchey. I think 2020 was a bad season for him. I think that's super fair. And specifically, I think it was kind of the perfect storm of a bunch of things, right? For Mike, it was the fact that the pandemic was going on. You couldn't have access to gyms. You couldn't have access to the nutritional people he would have with the 49ers normally. So it's harder to keep that weight on. Then you add that on with the fact that he was named captain. They lost Joe Staley. There was kind of this movement on the offensive line, and they lost a lot of key parts there. So I feel like when you take all that into consideration, it makes a lot of sense why Mike Mcglinchey had such a down year. But then when you look at all the positives of this season, the fact that I believe they're going to be running the ball more. I mean, if you go back to 2020, they ran the ball 41% of the time. That's not normal for Kyle Shanahan. He ran it 51% in 2019. So once they do that, once they run the ball more, once they add a center who is going to be a solid center who they can rely on, who isn't going to be rotating in and out throughout the season, even if the right guard position isn't that shored up, which it doesn't appear to be, I think Mike Mcglinchey is going to have a huge comeback year. And I think it's more situational than anything, like I said. And this season, to me, in my opinion, is the perfect storm of all the good things for Mike Mcglinchey, because there's less pressure off him now, because not that he's – I don't know if they've announced the captains yet, but don't anticipate they would give that back to him after what happened last season, honestly. I think there are other guys who would get that captain stamp. And I think when you take that kind of pressure off him and allow him to just be Mike Mcglinchey and not have to be focusing about what the rest of the offensive line is doing and being a quote unquote leader, and when he can just be himself, and you have all the weight that he's added on, like I said, along with the situational football, to me, it's the perfect storm of everything going right for Mike Mcglinchey. So I think this is going to be a huge improvement year for Mike Mcglinchey. And I'm not saying that he's going to be leaps and bounds better than he was in, let's say, 2019 or even 2018, but he'll be much better than he was in 2020, in my opinion.
I sure hope so. And my favorite point that you made is the fact that we're going to run the ball more this year. Last year, with the quarterbacks that we had, we got down. And when you're down in games, you got to throw. And pass protecting is not Mcglinchey's strength. But what is? Run blocking, getting to the second level, finding that safety 10 yards down the field and making that block to let the running back really hit the hole and get a big chunk play. And so that's a great point, because Mcglinchey's a phenomenal run blocker, and I expect to be running the ball more.
Absolutely. And that's the thing. I think they'll at least run it at the same rate in 2019, if not more, potentially. I mean, they might run the ball more than they did. So I think it's going to be a big year for Mike Mcglinchey. I really anticipate quite the bounce back for him. And, this next award is sort of along the same lines, but it's a little different. Let's talk about Comeback Player of the Year. Now, in terms of Comeback Player of the Year, there's kind of multiple ways you can define this. So, Eric, who do you choose, and why did you go about choosing that player?
This one to me is who's coming back from an injury or just some kind of absence that really took him away for a comeback for the Comeback Player of the Year. And I had two players that I was really waffling back and forth. I'm only going to give you one, and I'll see if you steal my other guy. But the first guy I'm looking at is Nick Bosa. All right, we only got one game from Nick Bosa last year, and Nick Bosa is so phenomenal. That one game against the Cardinals, week 1 last year, he was phenomenal. He was in Kyler Murray's face consistently, just with an array of pass rush moves, Ben. And that's a guy I want Bosa back, and I want him back to his 2019 self, where he's just wrecking havoc. He's a bully in the run. He keeps offensive linemen off balance with his multitude of pass rush moves. I want double-digit sacks from Nick Bosa this year, and I think he's going to get it. So, boom, that's my Comeback Player of the Year.
Yeah, and I think that certainly would be a very popular pick among 49ers fans. I'm sure if I check the comments right now, there's a lot of people saying, yeah, Nick Bosa. Absolutely, I understand that. And, I guess the only pushback I would have with that choice, not because I do understand the reasoning behind it. I totally hear you. I get you. But do you worry about him coming back from that injury and how much he's going to play early on in the season? Or do you see that as something that by the end of the year, collectively, it's all going to add up, and that once he's in the swing of things, week 4, week 5, for a couple weeks into the season, he'll really be able to get his feet underneath him? Do you feel that way?
Absolutely. Yeah. You got to start him off slow. You're not going to play him 90% of the snaps week 1, week 2.
I think he's got to be on a snap count until at least week 3, in my opinion. I mean, that was or week 2 was when he got hurt last year. So at least that first game. I mean, at least in my opinion. Same with D Ford. I think it's the same sort of situation.
You know what? You want your horses to be healthy come playoffs, come the end of the season when you have to make your playoff push. So I want to ease up on them, and then you unleash the beast. Second half, last third of the season, you let him go.
Yeah. Well, and I'm just checking out the comments. I appreciate that, Ekim. I'm feeling good. I'm looking good. I'm getting a haircut soon. So, I appreciate the comment. I saw some people when I had the full facial hair didn't fully appreciate it, but you know what? I don't really care. Bay, the guy I chose for Comeback Player of the Year, I went between two guys. One of the guys I just mentioned, D Ford. I did not ultimately choose D Ford because I just don't want to rely on him.
That was my second guy, Ben. That was my other guy I was pondering about.
for sure. But for me, comeback player of the year has to be Deebo Samuel. No question about it. And I think with his injury history last season, he could not only could he not play as much as he wanted to, obviously, but he couldn't perform the way he wanted to once he was playing in games. You saw how much it affected him. And by the looks of everything in training camp and all the reports we've seen from 49ers reporters, he seems like he's set up to have a stellar season with the 49ers. And, especially with Deebo's quote unquote being a running back and a wide receiver's body, that kind of foot injury is so tough on a player like that who needs to hit the ground running so much, especially when you hand him the ball as often as the 49ers do. So if you look specifically like at those games against the Rams, against the Patriots, his best 2 games really of the season, he was able to have a huge impact on this team when he does play. He probably single-handedly won that game against the Rams. So I think for the 49ers, if they can have a healthy Deebo Samuel and he can get the full reps in the offense and they can start targeting him downfield more, sky's the limit for him. I think, people have suggested maybe the 49ers will have 3,000-yard receivers. I don't know if I would quite go there, but I will say this. I think they should have at least Kittle, Ayuk, and Deebo finish with 1,000+ yards in all-purpose yards, at least. So I think collectively between the rushing and the receiving yards, altogether, each of those guys should finish with 1,000 yards or damn near close to 1,000 yards. So yeah,
especially with the 17th game, we got an extra game
absolutely.
now too.
Yeah. Absolutely, but yeah, Deebo Samuel, I just couldn't go anywhere else with this one. Honestly, I think he's going to have a hell of a year, and he did struggle last year.
No doubt. And let me tell you something about Deebo Samuel. Other teams got to prepare for this guy. These defensive coordinators, the linebackers coach, they're going to talk to their linebackers and say, look, when Deebo's in motion, you better pay attention to him. Don't ignore Deebo, because when Richie James is trying to run the jet sweep, they don't respect it the same.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, for sure, man. Yeah. That does take us. I want to go to the next topic. Smoother transition next time. Bay, for you, when you're looking up and down their roster, there weren't all the additions in the world for the 49ers, but they made some interesting additions outside of the rookies. Who do you think is going to be, the newcomer of the year for the 49ers? The player who they added who's going to make the biggest impact?
Yeah, you're right. Not a ton of guys to choose from here because it felt like we retained a lot of our players as opposed to bringing in new talent from other teams. But there's a player that is kind of been associated with me tightly now.
I know where you're going. I know. And I set up this topic perfectly, Bay. I'm going to let you talk in a sec. But I just got to say, when I was writing down everything, when I was planning out my show, I was looking straight at this question. I'm like, I know exactly where Bay Area Baller's going. So just tell the people.
We got a player from the Oakland Raiders, Arden Key. I love this guy coming out of LSU. He had phenomenal pass rush moves. Why the hell he only has 3 sacks 3 years into his career? I don't have a definitive answer for. If you saw the press conference yesterday, he said that the Raiders, it was a bad system. It was a bad fit, and he wanted to get the hell out of here. And he wanted to come to the 49ers. Why? Because over here, we put our defensive ends in the wide 9. That's going to give them more space to operate on the tackle, and we let them feast. He said there's less thinking in this scheme with the Niners. It's just attack, and I really think Arden Key's going to succeed. Now, I expect him to have, if I'm going conservative, I think he's going to eclipse his total career in sacks. He's got 3 sacks in his career. I think he's getting 4 to 6. But you know what? Let's get crazy, Ben. I'm predicting 8 sacks from Arden Key this year, just out of the blue. That's my guy. I mean, who's going to stand up for Arden Key?
Here's what I will say, Bay. He's going to have the opportunity, I believe, to do so. With the D Ford injury this year, with the Nick Bosa injury, how can you expect – I mean, I just don't know what to expect from those guys right now. And I don't think you can guarantee anything with either of those players. And then Samson Ebukam, he's been hurt recently. So I think the opportunity will certainly be there for Arden Key. Now, 8 sacks. I don't know if I could get quite there with you, man.
Okay, all right. That's a little steep.
But no, I think 3 to 5 to maybe 6 sacks is a ceiling. That's That seems like the right season for a guy like Arden Key. I guess I wonder this, Bay. My only question with him is, do you wonder if he's going to make the roster right now? Because he might be one of those guys that the 49ers have to let go of because they have so many great defensive players on their defensive line.
I feel like we're deeper on the interior. There's going to be some tough cuts. There's going to be some tough cuts when it comes to D tackle. There's going to be a guy or two at the D tackle position that we cut that other teams are salivating at the mouth to get.
Is Zach Kerr going to make the team? I mean, if he doesn't,
Contavious Street's been balling out. I mean, one of these guys isn't going to make it.
Yeah, one of these guys is not going to make it, man, and it is going to be tough. No, that's a great thing to point out, though, specifically because they don't really have many true edge players, and their edge depth in specific. Like I listed off the 3 starting edge players, or not 3 starters, but the first 3 edge players on the 49ers. All those guys have some sort of injury or some sort of issue to where we're just not completely sure they're going to play 17 games this season. So with the 49ers specifically, keeping a guy like Arden Key versus, let's say, a Contavious Street or a Kevin Gibbons or one of those type of interior type of pass rushers, it's going to be much more valuable because we've seen the 49ers' ability to get and develop interior defensive linemen. They don't have an issue with it. It's why I'm so critical of them selecting Javon Kinlaw. They didn't need to go out and spend a premium pick at a position where the 49ers are so elite at picking players, especially in the later rounds. If you look at what Chris Kasarik has done, and specifically, I love making this analogy all the time, Barry Abala, not the 49ers, the Steelers draft wide receivers excellently. They do it at a high rate, better than almost anyone else in the NFL.
In the second or third round, every year they're hitting on a wide receiver.
Round. They don't pick them in the first round, though, and it's because they know they get that value in the second or third round. So for the 49ers to pick Kinlaw, I'm sorry to get a little off topic, but with the edge depth in specific with Arden Key, it's going to be hugely important for the 49ers. I just don't know how much they can rely on Ebukam, Bosa, and Ford. As much as 49ers fans are hopeful, it's just you don't know what you're going to be getting from those guys right now.
Yeah, and we have to mention Armstead also plays early downs at defensive end, and then he usually shifts inside. So Armstead will also get some reps. But you mentioned a guy who, I was thinking him for most improved. I almost considered him, and that's Kevin Gibbons. I'm a big Kevin Gibbons guy. I think he's so quick on the interior. I would love to get him in some more pass rushing situations because I really like what Kevin Gibbons brings to the table.
Oh, absolutely. But for me, for Newcomer of the Year, I'm gonna stay in the same position group, actually. I'm going to go Samson Ebukam. I think Samson Ebukam is going to have a huge impact on the 49ers. As a pass rusher specifically, I think he adds depth. He adds versatility to this team. But if you look at his ability as a spy, as covering those mobile quarterbacks, something that the 49ers have really struggled with in the past few seasons, they need that type of guy to come and make those sort of plays. And to have Samson Ebukam who can flex out to the edge, or who can drop back and play that spiral, I think he's going to be hugely important and integral for the 49ers. And specifically, when they play the Kyler Murrays of the world, the Russell Wilsons of the world, even, it's not the same, but Matthew Stafford to an extent, you want that type of player. And you want to be able to use that type of player. And that's something that the 49ers just haven't had in the last few seasons. And I think with Samson Ebukam, they finally have that. And then guess what? He seems to be developing as a pass rusher. If he can have a decent impact as a pass rusher, it's a great win for the 49ers. It would just add another wrinkle and another layer to the way that DeMeco Ryans can call his defense and attack teams with pressure. That I think is what value he really brings to this team, that versatility more than anything else.
You're not kidding. He's very versatile. And actually, the way the Rams used him didn't show off his skills, because a lot of times he was dropping into coverage. Like, they used him in such a multitude of ways that he didn't get to specialize in one aspect. It wasn't like, hey, pin your ears back and get the QB, like it feels like we're going to ask him to do. But not only that, you mentioned how he contains the quarterback. Shameless plug. I did a breakdown on Samson Ebukam highlighting every sack in his career. And he had a couple. Yes, he had a couple where he started out containing the QB, meaning not letting him escape the pocket. He wasn't trying to rush too fast upfield. And as soon as he had a sack on Lamar Jackson thought he was going to be able to get around him. No, Sampson's quick, tracked him down, sacked him. And that's when I was like, you know what? This is going to be a great fit because Ebukam's bringing to the table what we've been lacking. He's a smart player, and now
really smart football player, man. Really
very smart football player. And now we're going to add another element to the wide 9 defensive end. We're going to say, Sampson, use your power because he's powerful. Pin your ears back and get the QB. So really, I mean, it's a great choice. Sampson really could have a breakout season.
For sure, man. And I want to bring up a few comments real quick because I saw this one. He was talking about, we were talking about the Steelers receiving core earlier. That's the thing with the 49ers. They have Chris Kasarik. That's why you shouldn't take defensive linemen, interior ones as high. I understand taking edge players. That I would understand, but with how much the 49ers invest into developing their interior defensive linemen, there's no good reason they should have taken Javon Kittle. I'm sorry. It's just when you consider team building, when you consider depth, when you consider value in the draft, it was a stupid decision for the 49ers. Even if Javon
I agree with you. When we made that pick, I was honestly kind of like, that's the pick. Like I had scouted Kinlaw, and yeah, he was powerful, but he didn't show the array of pass rush moves that you think you're getting when you're picking a lineman in the top 11 or 12, wherever we picked him at. So I understand where you're coming from.
For sure, man.
But he's powerful. Let me get this in. Yeah. Kinlaw is so powerful. What he will do, he's going to be he's going to be walking offensive linemen back into the quarterback's lap. So I don't expect Kinlaw's sack number to be high, but how he affects the quarterback position, and he's going to have to make quarterbacks sidestep and evade him because Kinlaw's going to be bull rushing.
Bay Area baller, dude. Chris Sims talks about this stat he made up all the time, right? He calls it the F the play up stat, right? The guys who it's not going to show up on the stat sheet, but they make a decision or they do something to make a team or a quarterback, like you were just talking about, make a poor decision and affect the play in a way to where they have to throw the ball away or it's a loss or whatever may have you. So I think, yeah, you're right. He's definitely going to add that sort of value. Just want to go through a few more comments real quick. I agree with you, Ekim. I'm not going to, I'll leave that one there. But yeah, I mean, I think with just getting back to Ebucom for a second, he's just going to add a lot of versatility to this defense. And like I said, it's just something that this team hasn't had in the past. And I think it's going to be very important. I think it's going to be a really key role for them next season. I mean, especially with the way the league is going with all these running quarterbacks. So if you're playing Russell Wilson and Kyler Murray, and then a few other quarterbacks on your schedule, just thinking about it, that's at least 5, 6, 7 games this season where the 49ers are going to have to deal with a mobile quarterback. So having a guy like Samson Ebukam who can play that role so well, it's going to be super important for a first-year defensive coordinator like DeMeco Ryans in specific. So I think it's something that's definitely going to help the 49ers this year, and I think his impact will be felt for sure. Let's get to our next one, Bay Area Baller. So we got 2 awards left that we're going to be giving out, and then we'll end with a few other topics right before we get out of here. Let's talk about the 6th man of the year. Now, this is more of an NBA award. I'm a basketball guy. Sorry, everyone, I know. But we're talking about the best player off the bench for the 49ers. So for you, who do you think is the 49ers, I guess, best depth piece, like that first guy off the 49ers bench?
This was a tough one. And you know what? I accidentally mentioned his name earlier, and it's Kevin Gibbons. I really like Kevin Gibbons. When I was watching him at Penn State, Ben, they never took this guy off the field. They realized how valuable it was to have Kevin Gibbons on the field, and he played literally every down. And let me tell you about Kevin Gibbons. This guy, we need to put him in on pass rushing situations because he's so quick. The way he makes offensive linemen whiff, Ben, he'll fake a lunge to a gap and then he'll jump to the other gap, and it keeps offensive linemen off balance. It keeps them guessing, and just the way he can shoot gaps in the run game, tackles for losses, And I know we're deep on the interior, but I expect Kevin Gibbons to have a huge positive impact for the Niners this season.
Maybe I'm cheating a little bit for this one, Bay Area baller, and I totally agree with you on that one. I kind of may have taken an easy choice on this one. I'm not going to blame myself because you know what? It's DJ Jones. I think DJ Jones is going to be that most important player off the bench for the 49ers. Now, I know he's been starting recently. I know Javon.
I was going to say, I think, has Javon Kinlaw stolen that job from him yet?
I'm not sure. But here's what I will say. If you check the depth chart right now, Javon Kinlaw is the 49ers starter. So when I put that, listen, I'm there with Kevin Gibbons. That's who I would have chosen, honestly, if I'd not gone with DJ Jones. But I'm choosing DJ Jones because if we talk about the 49ers and how they're going to be successful, it's, they need to bring in waves of defensive linemen. They don't need just 4 good defensive linemen. They need 7 or 8. And I think that's when you have the guys like DJ Jones, when you have guys like Kevin Gibbons, Contavious Street, Zach Kerr, Arden Key. I mean, those are all your bench guys, and a lot of teams would be lucky just to have those players as their starters for the season. So I think for the 49ers in specific, the way they can bring in waves of defensive linemen, specifically a guy like DJ Jones, yeah, I think he's the best player off the bench technically. Now, I think he's probably going to surpass as the starter, and, he will likely be the starter. So I am cheating a little bit, sorry, but I think DJ Jones is going to have a great impact on this team this year. I really do.
And I really like DJ Jones. I was surprised we were able to get him back for the contract we did. I was like, oh, DJ Jones is a free agent. The money's tight. I don't think – but no, we got him back. And every time I think of DJ Jones, I think about the play where he just eviscerated the center for the Seahawks, last name Hunt, where he just bull rushed him, knocked him down, and then he just sacked Russell Wilson. He was in Russell's face in less than a second.
Yeah, for sure. Just want to put this out there. Hey, listen, I like to look good. Sorry.
You know what, Ben? You're inspiring me. I might have to go hit up Men's Warehouse or Macy's and kind of step my game up a little bit.
Listen, Bay, let me just explain this for everyone because I do have more people watching me now since I've started doing this more. And I explained this in my first episode. The reason I do this, dude, is because I'm 21. I want people to take me seriously, man. And I do take myself seriously. I'm a professional. So I want people to treat me like a professional. Simple as that. But let's go to our next topic real quick, Bay. And hey, dude, don't worry about the dress code thing, man. This is purely for me. This is just for me. I enjoy it. Trust me. Let's get to the most interesting award. Let's get to the one everyone's kind of waiting for. And I think everyone's going to have a certain opinion about. Before I let you suggest yours, Bay, let's let people in the comments throw us out who you think the 49ers MVP is going to be. I mean, MVP, obviously, most valuable player on the team. Let's give everyone about, let's give them a little 10 more seconds. Let's chill out, check the comments for a second. Let's see.
Mine's already written down, so I'm not flip-flopping. No one's going to sway me in the comments section. I got my MVP.
I have the least amount of notes written for this one. I have two words written down. So Bay Area baller, who's going to be the 49ers MVP this season?
There it is. George Kittle.
Man, Kittle. Did you plan that out, Bay? Did you plan that out? I need to know.
I did. Yeah. I got off work. I got to change my shirt. And I saw my Kittle shirt in there, and I knew I was MVP, George Kittle. Put on the George Kittle shirt. George Kittle, I mean, the guy broke the record for receiving yards by a tight end, which has since been broken by Kelsey. But he's such a weapon in the pass game. He's dynamic after the catch. The first guy doesn't bring him down. We remember him dragging 3 New Orleans Saints down for the game-winning drive, and
by his helmet. I mean, oh my God, sorry, no, it's just Kittle's impact it's ridiculous, man. He's the best player on this team.
He's a monster, and we're talking about the pass game. Now you talk about the run game, and he's dominant. The way he can contain some of these defensive ends who are trying to get back to the running backs, the way he can get to the next level and make that block.
And we
George,
saw when he was hurt last season how significant of a blow it was to the run game. That should tell you about his value already on top of what he does as a receiver. So we know how affected the 49ers are by George Kittle's loss. I think this is a great pick. I really like that. I really do, because I think his impact not only in the run game but in the pass game, like you've been saying, is just so important to what Kyle Shanahan does. And it makes life easier for Debo. It makes life easier for Ayuk. It makes life easier for the running backs. It makes life easier for Kyle Juszczyk. It makes life easier for the rest of the 49ers offense. And when he isn't there, his presence is felt. Like they know when Kittle's not playing. And that's, to me, when you're talking about value, that's a huge part of that, man. So I'm definitely on board with you for Kittle. I absolutely
his energy, his enthusiasm, it's contagious. You know,
he's the heartbeat of the
brings
team, man. He's the heartbeat of the team.
Yes. So that's why I went with my boy George Kittle.
Yeah, I like that one. I really do. Gosh, I'm not that I'm mad I didn't pick it. I'm mad I didn't think about it. God, that's a good one. I know who I'm picking. I just want to make sure I communicate this the right way. 49ers most valuable player this season is going to be Trey Lance. It's going to be Trey Lance. I think if the 49ers are going to be successful this season, it's going to be because of Trey Lance. And specifically, it's going to be because of his effect not only on the football team, of course, but on the cap situation. With Jimmy Garoppolo, with how expensive he is, the difference between playing Jimmy Garoppolo and playing Trey Lance, it's hugely significant. It's the difference between 4 or 5 more starters on this team and potential depth pieces. So if you want the 49ers to go on a Super Bowl run, if you want the 49ers to make the playoff season, if you want them to be successful in the playoffs, it has to be Trey Lance. And in my opinion, they're going to get there eventually. I'm not 100% sure if it's going to be week 1. I'm starting to lean that it's going to be week 1, but if they started him week 3, week 4, I wouldn't be surprised. Point being is that Trey Lance's effect on this football team is going to be felt, and not just only in the run game. Because let's dive into the run game first, though, because specifically with the run game, they're going to run more zone read this year. They're going to run the ball more in general this year, and when they do run the ball more, they're more successful. Kyle Shanahan, when he had the 2019 49ers, they ran the ball 51% of the time. I've mentioned this a bunch of times before. In 2012, Washington football team ran the ball 51% of the time. So Trey Lance can have not the same sort of play style as Robert Griffin III, right? But the same amount of passing and running plays and the same dynamic with the play action that we saw that was so successful in 2012. So I think for the 49ers, if you look at what they haven't had over the last few seasons from the quarterback position, they haven't had a mobile quarterback, obviously. That's going to add a huge dynamic. But that deep ball is something they haven't had with Jimmy Garoppolo. And what Trey Lance and his ability to throw the deep pass and his ability to stretch teams out and really test defenses and strain defensive coordinators, Trey Lance is going to be the 49ers MVP. He's going to have a hell of a season, in my opinion. And I see them, in my opinion, I think I see them throwing the ball about 20 times a game with Trey Lance. Maybe he'll run the ball 6 to 8, maybe 9, 10 times a game. I wouldn't see them pushing more than that, though. But the point being is that the effect that Trey Lance is going to have on this football team, it's going to be felt, and it's going to make everyone else better on the offense. And I think he's Kyle Shanahan's ideal quarterback. I really think he is. And I think Kyle fell in love with this kid and the way he can run his offense with this kid. And I think he's just waiting to open it up. I mean, we even heard about Kyle on the plane ride to Justin Fields, drawing up plays for Trey Lance. So I think Kyle's going to utilize those plays, and I think 49ers fans should be really excited. And I just got to put this out there and make sure I don't have a vote or anything, so it doesn't matter. I did put a bet on Trey Lance to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. I felt pretty good about that, plus 650 odds. So I think Trey Lance is going to have a hell of a season with the 49ers, and I think the difference between him and Jimmy Garoppolo is going to make this team leaps and bounds better, and they're going to look much better, and they're going to be so explosive.
And I love what you mentioned. because teams they've been loading the box on Jimmy. They know Jimmy likes to throw over the middle. He doesn't have a deep game. We like to run the ball. So teams have been putting 8 guys in the box, and that makes it harder to run the ball. So now with Trey Lance, well, now if you put extra guys in the box, you're going to have to count for Trey Lance running if you want to do that. And on top of that, we're going to have more explosive plays in the passing game because we're going to win on some deep routes, whether it's Ayuk and now Debo Samuel's been showing in training camp that, hey, I'm not just a gadget guy who needs to catch a 2-yard pass. You don't have to just give me a jet sweep. I can win down the field. And Debo's been showing that in training camp. And I expect to see it, especially when Trey Lance is under center.
Oh, yeah. And I just think the offense is going to be better in general. Yeah, I think it's just going to be so much better, so much more efficient. And where we saw the 49ers, have 8 play like long drives, really like long drives. I think the difference with Trey Lance is they're going to have these explosive 20, 30, 40-yard plays where it's going to be 4 or 5-yard plays on a drive and they'll score touchdowns. And I think it's just I really think this is the guy Kyle Shanahan's been waiting for his entire career. And what he does, let's just compare him to Robert Griffin III for a second, because yes, Robert Griffin III is more athletic. I think he added a certain level of speed element that Trey Lance just can't quite do, even though it's still very good. But what Robert Griffin III struggled with was going through his progressions, being a smart, cerebral quarterback who is willing to work through everything. And that's what Trey Lance does so well. That's the thing I think 49ers fans should be so excited for, because all the reports we've seen from everything I've been listening to from Grant, and not just Grant, but Mayoko, every single reporter, Lance is a smart, cerebral football player who goes through his progressions. He steps up in the pocket and he's not willing to run until it's ultimately his last resort or there's an obvious lane for him to run in. And to me, that's Kyle Shanahan's perfect quarterback. And I think this is the perfect marriage of system and player. And I think it's gonna be great for Kyle's system, but I think it's also gonna evolve Kyle's system, and it's gonna take it to leaps and bounds we've never even seen before.
Not only that, and Trey Lance, he's not afraid to check the ball down. Whereas I think that's what's when one's not open, two's not open, you have to have that mental clock, and that's what Jimmy struggles with sometimes. He's holding the ball, he's patting, he's looking around.
Oh,
check the ball down. You got your running back open in the flat. That's going to be 2 or 3 yards, and if he makes that linebacker miss, it's going to be a first down. So
absolutely.
Trey Lance understands
think
that.
about when Jimmy's sitting back. We saw him in the practice. He double clutched. When you do that kind of stuff, it just limits the 49ers offense when you aren't willing to throw outside the numbers, when you aren't willing to throw deep. It's not like Jimmy doesn't have the ability. I mean, we've seen him make certain throws. He just doesn't have the willingness and aggressiveness to do it. And I think what Trey Lance adds is, like you just perfectly pointed out, he's willing to check the ball down, but then guess what? He's not just going to check the ball down. He's going to do a lot more than that. Absolutely, man. So, yeah, that's where I'm at with the 49ers MVP.
That's bold, by the way. Your MVP pick, bold.
And what I will say is I think if the 49ers are going to be the most successful, it's going to be because of Trey Lance. And it's going to be because of the effect he has on this football team. Do you agree with me on that, babe?
I mean, honestly, Ben, I think we can win games with Jimmy G. And I don't get me wrong, I want to see Trey Lance, but if Jimmy G's in there to start, I expect to win, week 1, week 2, and then weeks 3, 4, 5. I don't have the schedule in front of me, but I know weeks 3, 4, 5, we got some challenging games. So that's why
it's actually Packers, Seahawks, and Cardinals, I believe, for those next 3 games.
Yes. So Ben, now I don't want to forecast negativity, but I expect us to win versus the Lions, and I expect us to win week 2. But if somehow, we start out 2-3 or 3-2, we got that bye week, and that's why I'm thinking after the bye is when Trey Lance gets his first action.
Fair enough. I think the main thing with me is Jimmy Garoppolo can only take the 49ers so far. We know what the ceiling of this team is with him. And I know it's a bold pick, but I think if we're going to see the 49ers reach new heights, not necessarily winning the Super Bowl, because I just don't think that's going to happen. But if we're going to see from a look perspective, from what we see on film, from the excitement we have for the 49ers in the future. If they're taking that next leap, it's going to be because of Trey Lance and no one else, in my opinion. So,
I'm not going to argue with you there.
No, yeah, and that's kind of where I'm at with that one. We're going to end things now with these last two topics. We're going to end with talking about who will lead the 49ers in receiving yards and sacks. Let us know in the comments if who you think will lead the 49ers in those two areas. Make sure you like and subscribe to my channel. Make sure you like this video if you're enjoying it. I would appreciate the feedback. And go check out all Bay Area Ballers content. He's been making some excellent stuff lately, and I'm sure he's going to have more excellent stuff in the future. And when NFL gets Game Pass back, we can finally I don't even want to get into Game Pass right now. I hate the NFL.
That better if they don't have the all 22 coaches film by week 1, I mean, I'm going to be furious.
I'm already pissed. So, let's get into our last two though, Bay. Who do you think is going to lead the 49ers in receiving yards? Ooh. Okay.
That man.
Let's
I'm doubling down. He's my MVP, and now he's going to lead the 49ers in receiving. George Kittle's a weapon. I mean, he can do it. He can win down the field with his route running. He can win on the short passes, shrug off a tackler, and then go. I think we forget how fast George Kittle is. For a tight end, he's got really good speed. I think he ran a 4.5. I mean, he's got wide receiver. So this guy's got wide receiver speed. He's got wide receiver hands, and the first guy doesn't bring him down. I mean, George Kittle's a monster, and I expect him to lead the team in receiving yards.
Yeah, that's a good prediction, and I think there's a lot of 49ers fans who would agree with you on that one. I say Brandon Ayuk. The reason I say Brandon Ayuk, and I know you knew that's where I was going with this one, man, but here's my main thing with Ayuk. He is just such a in all the advanced statistics and all the measurables and everything we've seen from Ayuk, he's poised to have an explosive year too. And if there aren't any setbacks, if there aren't any issues with injury with Ayuk, he plays all 17 games. He should have 1,100 yards at least, minimum, if he plays 17 games. And the main thing with me for Ayuk is that I love how fluid he is as a player. Like, he's just so, when you watch him in the open field, when you watch his explosive plays, when you watch his ability to make plays even when they aren't there to be had, that's the kind of stuff I look for in my elite receivers. And I think the reason he's going to lead the 49ers in receiving yards over George Kittle in particular is because I just don't know if I can rely on George Kittle as much. And I think that's fair. I think with Ayuk, it's fair to point out the injuries, but with Kittle, the injuries are more regular than they are with Ayuk. I mean, it's just a thing at this point. His only 16-game season was one of his first 2 years, I believe.
Well, it's because he's so physical, Ben. I mean, that's where, and Shanahan likes these physical guys who are going to break tackles. They shrug off the first guy. They'll take on a linebacker with their shoulder, right? Debo, Kittle, these Jalen Hurd was supposed to be another one of these guys. But these players are more prone to getting injured. That's the downfall of it.
That's the downside of these type of players. And that's why I think in specific Ayuk, like I think his ability to protect himself and his ability to stay healthy, I think the only thing that could really hold him back is if he gets one of those hamstring injuries, one of those quad injuries, one of those things where because he's so fast and strong and because he's such an elite athlete, it's like running an engine, right? You can only push it so far. So I think with him, unless he pushes it too far, he should absolutely lead the 49ers in receiving yards. And specifically, if you look at, like his reception perception chart, and it's a great chart where you can see how successful he is on certain routes. They chart flat, everything from flats to nines to goes, right? And outs and everything in between. He's above average in every single area, pretty much besides the flats and the screens, and that was only because of the way they used him. And I think with Debo in specific, that is just going to make it easier when Debo's healthy, right? So with Ayuk, because I think they're going to be playing Trey Lance more, because I think even if even if Jimmy Garoppolo is the quarterback, they got to try and stretch the ball out more, even if they're not going to do it. They at least got to attempt it. I think that's going to favor a guy like Ayuk the most. And I think out of Debo and Kittle, I mean, listen, there's injury concern with all of them. But like you said, because of the physical style of play that Debo and Kittle play, I worry about them more than I worry about a guy like Ayuk in specific. And not that I want anyone to get injured, but if we're being realistic, like you said, with the style of play, it's just, I don't know how reliable that is for those type of guys. So if I'm making the safe bet, for me, it's Ayuk.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue against you very much. And between Ayuk and Debo, I think we agree from what I just heard that it seems like Ayuk would be more of the deep threat, right? Like trying to win over the top, win teams, load the box.
He's just got those go-go gadget arms. I mean, he's literally like 6'10" in wingspan. It's ridiculous. It's the second.
He's got the same wingspan as Calvin Johnson.
That's exactly what it was. I mean, so,
and he's so sudden. And while we're on the Brandon Ayuk topic, I got to talk about how sudden he is. Like when it's hard to describe suddenness, but it's when you're running and when he breaks, his cut is so fast and so sharp that the DB reacts just a tick later than some of these other receivers running that same route. He's so sudden.
Well, yeah, and you know what it is in specific? You're talking about suddenness. That's a great way to talk about it. I think the description's great. His ability to create separation is insane. And that's the thing that he's going to be so successful with, especially next season. I think it's something that he can get even better and better at as he progresses in the league and becomes more of a veteran, becomes a smarter football player, gets more experience. Because, and this is a thing in sports I like paying attention to specifically, Eric, is that if you look, right, I'll give a good example. Donovan Mitchell, and this is a different sport, but Donovan Mitchell didn't really play basketball until he was 16 or 17 years old. And then every year, if you look, he's improved since then in every single aspect. He's always gotten better every single season. I see the same kind of way for progression for Ayuk. He's a guy who didn't play wide receiver pretty much up until he got to JUCO, right? So now that he is getting that experience and now that he's getting better on top of getting better on top of getting better, just in his time from Arizona State to the 49ers, he's the type of guy to where I see like he hasn't been playing receiver his whole life. Therefore, his ceiling and his room for growth, it's going to be huge. And I think once you're at this level and you're that type of athlete and you get to this level of the profession, for those type of guys, it's only going to go upwards for them, especially because you don't have all that football experience in the world. So I think for Ayuk, getting back to that Donovan Mitchell example, he's just going to get better every single season.
That's a phenomenal point. And I hadn't heard that argument been made, but I really like that point you just made.
Thank you. No, yeah, it's something I've been thinking about a lot lately because often we look at the college background, we might look at the high school background, but you have to put the full context of these players' athletic careers, right? You have to understand what type of stuff they do. And now it's not all important, but for me, it's interesting to see those kind of guys who are newer to sports later on in their life, who aren't quite receivers yet, like Ayuk was, or like I said with Donovan Mitchell, a guy who was playing baseball and basketball, right? Now that Ayuk is finally able to focus on just being a wide receiver in the NFL, when people talk about stacking days on top of days on top of days, right? I think he's going to stack years on top of years on top of years. And he's the type of guy, man, I think sky's the limit. The kid has all the potential in the world, and I'm super excited for him next season. But let's get to our last topic, Bay, before we get out of here. Who do you think will finish the season with the most sacks for the 49ers? This is a tough one. I know you already have someone in mind. We kind of talked about this, and even right now, I'm not 100% sure who I'm going to say. So I'm very curious to hear what you're about to say.
Arden Key. No, I'm just playing. I'm rolling with the blue chipper, Nick Bosa. Nick Bosa. I mean, I love Nick Bosa. He's phenomenal. He had 9.5 sacks that rookie season in 2019. Right. And it could have easily been 11, 12. There was a couple times where he was right there and, the quarterback either wiggled away or sidestepped. But I think Nick Bosa will have double-digit sacks this season, and that's my pick. I think he's going to have the most sacks on the team.
That's a great pick, and I think with Nick Bosa in specific, I mean, the question is health with him. If he can play, I don't think there's any reason he shouldn't lead the 49ers in sacks, and specifically his pressure ability and with the advanced statistics. He is such an elite pass rusher, and he is among the league's best, really. And he should have gotten more sacks that season. The numbers showed so. And just his impact on games, the way he's a game wrecker, that's the kind of thing you really want from those defensive end types. It's sort of the way Khalil Mack impacts a game, right? He's just a game wrecker. It's that same sort of impact where you really feel it with players. And I think Nick Bosa is the best game wrecker on the 49ers. But the guy who I think is going to finish the season with the most sacks, it's going to be, I think, D Ford, actually. Let's talk a little bit about it. This is going to be a hot take. But let me give you the pitch. If he's healthy, again, this all hinges on health, of course. But the way the 49ers are going to use him situationally in pass rush, in pass rushing and in third downs, in the way they're going to want him to get sacks, he's going to have all the opportunity in the world to get 8, 9, 10 sacks if the 49ers play his season out the right way. And then with a guy like Nick Bosa opposite of him, with all the attention he is getting, how big Eric Armstead is, with how much pressure they can put on other teams, I think D Ford's just going to eat because teams will be so focused on those other players along the defensive line that they won't be able to double team or really account for a guy like D Ford. And he's just going to, I think, be in terms of situational pass rush, he's going to have all these great one-on-ones. He's going to have the ability, in my opinion, to really get a lot of sacks because of the situation season. Now, Nick Bosa might finish with more pressures. In fact, there might be other players who finish with more pressures. But if we're talking about sacks, just because you get more sacks than one player, it doesn't mean you're a better pass rusher necessarily. It is situationally based, and a lot of it is not right player, right time, but that is a certain amount of a big part of it and the type of matchups you get and what your team is asking you to do. So I think what the 49ers, in terms of what they're asking D Ford to do and what they're going to have him do, what they expect from him, I think I could certainly see him leading the team in sacks. And I hear you for Nick Bosa, but if I'm going the other way, I think D Ford's a good candidate for this.
Ben, you just gave me a feeling that I haven't felt since the day we traded for D Ford. Because the day that trade happened, we sent away that second-round pick. And, I had heard Ford had a good season for Kansas City, and I put on the tape. And, Ben, D Ford, when he's right, it jumps off the screen. This guy's burst and acceleration, because that's what we were missing. We were missing, they call it the Leo pass rusher, that speed rusher who's really going to but going to make the quarterback step up in the pocket, right? By turning the corner quick, make that quarterback step up, and then that's where the D tackles
collapse the pocket. He does such a great job of collapsing the pocket.
D Ford is a special pass rusher when he's right. And you're right. You're not gonna use D Ford on running downs. You don't want to waste the potential snaps that he has available. When he's healthy, you're going to put him in on pass rushing downs, and those are sack situations. So actually, that's a really good pick, and you kind of got me hyped up about D Ford again. I'm like, man, he's back out there. Are we going to get are we going to get a clutch, healthy season at a D Ford?
Potentially, man. Potentially. And I think, and 49er minded just mentioned this. D Ford's jump off line of scrimmage. I mean, his burst, like you were talking about.
100%. Shout out to Bashar.
Oh, yeah, shout out. He's a great guy. But I mean, that acceleration off the line of scrimmage, it's awesome, man. And that's where I think it's going to be so successful if Nick Bosa is playing. It hinges on a lot. But if the 49ers are right in terms of their defensive line, I could absolutely see D Ford leading the 49ers in sacks over Nick Bosa, just because teams are going to be paying so much attention to Nick Bosa, right?
Absolutely. I mean, going into it, really, D Ford, for some reason, he's kind of still on the back of my mind, like, prove it, show me you can play in a real game.
Absolutely.
But, if we're being optimistic and D Ford is back to what I know the talent level he has, then I would not be shocked if he led this team in sacks.
Yeah, I think it's certainly a huge possibility for this team. Bay, we're running up on an hour, man. This is a great time. I really appreciate you talking with me as always. Everyone, make sure you like and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I appreciate the support. Check out all Bay Area Ballers content too. I'll be back this week. I got some great stuff this week. Tomorrow, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Jason Aponte, Splash Cousin are both coming on my channel. I'm very much enjoying that. And then
I'm kind of jealous, Ben. I mean, those are two big timers, prime time 49ers media members. So
absolutely.
I'm impressed, and I'm going to be tuned in.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that, Bay. I'll make sure to look out for you in the comments. But Wednesday, I'm just announcing this because I secured it just before our show. Rich Madrid's coming on Shanalytics. So we have a loaded week of Shanalytics for 49ers fans. That will be at 6:30 Eastern, 3:30 Pacific on Wednesday afternoon. And then I'm gone, guys. I'm going on vacation after that. So I hope that's enough good content for everyone before I get out of here. I'm going to be putting out a Sports Illustrated article pretty soon. You know what? In fact, I might consult Bay on that. We might be talking a little bit about pass rush pressure, that sort of thing. I've been doing a deep dive in terms of pressure and specifically the 49ers players, interior guys, edge guys. And yeah, so be on the lookout for that, everyone. I appreciate your time as always, Bay. Is there anything you want to plug before we just get out of here, man?
Hey, I'm fired up for this preseason game Saturday. I'm going to be at the game, Ben. So I'm going to be locked in. I'll let you know who's balling, who's screwing up. We'll make sure we have that discussion next week.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. We'll definitely talk about that. That'll be fun for sure. I appreciate all the support, everyone in the comments. Make sure you tune back in, like I said, tomorrow, Wednesday. It's going to be some great stuff I have coming for you guys. Have a great Monday night, everybody. Peace out.